Bitcoin Magazine's Meet the Taco Plebs. Today we have a fantastic guest, but before we get to it, I have to tell you about our conference happening in Miami, April 6th to the 9th. Bitcoin 2022 is going to be even better than Bitcoin 2021, let me tell you. The conference last year was awesome, so many cool faces, and it really was like the biggest event in this space. So you're going to want to be there. I have a code for you, Taco Plebs, no space. You get 10% off. If you buy with Bitcoin, you also get $100 off the full price, I believe. So make sure you buy with Bitcoin and use code Taco Plebs. And if you're into technical analysis, we have the deep dive subscription product. And for you, those of you interested in that, the code is macro21, get you a discount on that. But without further ado, we have our new social media manager, Phoenix, here. Welcome to the show, Phoenix.
Hey, thank you so much.
It's excellent to have you. We've been, looking for someone to take over our Instagram and Facebook channels and all that. So we are excited to have you on the team. But let's jump right into it. I wanted to ask you how you first got into Bitcoin, what your rabbit hole story was, and what led you to our industry.
Oh, it's a good question. Thanks again for having me on your show. So let's see, going back, I'd have to say it was right around 2012, 2013, right around that time. It's actually went over to visit a friend who had just moved into a new place. Just kind of show me around a little bit, how we do. And we went to one room and he had like this little case or something. I didn't know what it was. It was like a laptop and some fans and stuff. And I was like, what's that? What's that going on over there? And he's just like, oh, I'm mining some Bitcoins. And that was the first time I even heard the word, I was just like, oh, what? I was like, what Bitcoins? What is that? And he just he said it was just like some internet money that you could use for things on, online. And so I was like, oh, it's, I was kind of interested, but I didn't really know enough about it to even dive in to ask me more questions. But later he told me he didn't even really know a whole lot about it at the time. So anyways, that was my first like introduction to like the word Bitcoin. And it wasn't until a few years later that I was visiting some other friends. I showed up, we were going to go out that night. And so I showed up at my friend's house and he and his other friend had like these monitors everywhere and this whiteboard, and they had like dates and prices, and they were trading. So they were really into trading at the time. It was about 2017. And so, yeah, I just kind of started chatting with them. I had done some investing in the past, so I was kind of familiar with like charts and stuff. So they were showing me Bitcoin, and they had some Ethereum and some other things on there. But he was like super, super cool about it and just explained a little bit about what Bitcoin was. And so I was super intrigued by it. And I handed my phone, he set it up for me. He set me up a account on, I think, Coinbase and Binance. Back then it was just Binance, not Binance US anyways. But so it was fun, I just kind of got into it and got my feet wet a little bit. And I didn't really dive in too much then. It just took me a couple years to read it, and I kept reading everything I could find about it after he told it to me. And yeah, it's just been diving down the rabbit hole ever since then.
Well, that's awesome. I think 2017 trading was, just the thing to do at the time. And it's interesting that your first exposure really was that mining case. I think mining is such a special part of Bitcoin. So, and when you see it in person for the first time, it really looks interesting because it's a computer and it looks like a computer and it's running, but it doesn't seem to be doing anything per se. And it isn't much later usually in people's Bitcoin education that they fully understand what processes were going on there. So that's, awesome. But, I'm curious, what led you towards working in this industry?
I've always kind of been interested in money and finance. My mom worked in banks her whole life, and she had always, kind of educated me a little bit about the older system of money. And it's always been something that's been very interesting to me. I feel like I have a natural kind of grasp on the concept of money and how things work. And, I've been a fine artist my whole life. So I've dabbled in, everything from sculpture to pottery to painting. And, money has always been like something that was an allure to me, and making money, how to make money. And the more and more I learned about Bitcoin, I started focusing less on, galleries and such like that and traveling, and I just started studying Bitcoin. And I was like, this is the field for me. This is where, because in a way, um, especially with mining, that it's kind of hands-on, and I just really started leaning towards Bitcoin, especially. And I was online, I was on Twitter, I was looking for people that were in the space, and then I stumbled upon the Bitcoin Bitcoin jobs, and I was like, oh, cool. It was pretty new at the time, and then I saw that Bitcoin Magazine was hiring. I applied for a couple different positions there because like that was my number one, right? I needed to be there. I needed to be in the space somewhere where I could be studying what it is I'm truly passionate about, and lend my expertise, which is my art background. So when the position came up for social media manager, and I had a chance to do some designs and also talk about and learn about Bitcoin a little bit more, I was all on board for that. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Bitcoin Jobs, it really is a great resource. Many of the people I've interviewed now on this show actually have come from Bitcoin Jobs. But you mentioned you were in the fine art world, prior to this. I'm curious if you see any relationships between Bitcoin and fine art, or if you see any sort of things that they have in common.
Bitcoin and fine art, let's see. Well, definitely, like, I feel like people who are, I think a lot of the plebs are into like building something for themselves, self-sufficiency and community. And I feel like artists in general are that type of people, whether, it's, we don't want to necessarily be stuck behind a desk in some cubicle working for something that you really don't believe in. So I think a lot of people that are into Bitcoin and I think a lot of those people have similar qualities with people that are into art. So maybe not directly, but definitely indirectly. I think that they have a lot in common.
Definitely. That's interesting. But moving on, I guess I would ask you what the primary life lesson you have extracted from Bitcoin so far is.
The primary life lesson, I was thinking about that just the other day, actually. And before I got into Bitcoin, I was actually doing some other work with some other businesses, and I was doing okay financially. And I just started to notice that my money, I didn't want to keep it in dollars. So I started seeing like what the value of money is. And as I learned more about Bitcoin, it made me like reflect on those things that I spend my money on, and value in general. So when you start thinking about the value of money and the value of your time and the value of your resources, you begin to almost naturally start to want to live a little bit more simply. It's like, okay, well, I could go out tonight, or I can go spend X amount of dollars or fiat, or I could, put away in Bitcoin. So it kind of taught me value, and also having like a lower time preference. Not so into like, oh, I gotta like buy this right now, because it just makes me feel like I've learned a lot more about value and how to postpone certain purchases that don't really make sense. They don't really matter long term.
Right. Bitcoin sort of transfers that idea of money from something that you use to get things to like the actual original purpose, which was to store the time and your effort in a
Right.
medium that you could exchange.
Right. And if you're gonna spend your Bitcoin, it better be something that's super worth it, right?
Exactly. I think the impact on people's time preference it's very acute. Like I think we think of time preference as this sort of grand idea, but it's very acute when you experience the shift from the fiat sort of mindset to owning Bitcoin and trying to save as much as you can, really.
Right. Yeah, it's like a lot of people today are so, I've been guilty of this in the past too, just this instant gratification where, everything is so readily available at our fingertips. You can go on Amazon and buy whatever you want, and it's almost too easy. So that's the one thing that I really am grateful for finding Bitcoin, is because it's definitely taught me to really double think and make sure that what I'm putting my time, my energy into is of value.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you there. So I guess moving on, I want to talk about what aspects of the Bitcoin community you most identify with or you see most reflected, from yourself?
I definitely have to say, I really do like, we touched upon this a little bit, but the sense of community that a lot of Bitcoiners have cultivated in the space. And also, I enjoy freedom in this country, and I feel like it's something that our freedoms are becoming less and less. And I like that Bitcoin provides kind of that self-sufficiency in a way, and freedom, and just being able to not depend solely upon someone else and trusting someone else. So that's kind of, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no,
That's kind of what I was
absolutely. Absolutely. I think Bitcoiners have sort of collected this group of people who all hold freedom and self-sovereignty as,
Exactly.
some of the highest ideals. And I think as we continue forward with hyper Bitcoinization, adoption, and such, we'll see more gathering of people who are like-minded in that sense, and then we'll see that idea actually disseminate into people who aren't quite, in that mindset yet. But I think the tangible representation of that in Bitcoin and in Bitcoin's appreciation and the productivity and wealth basically created by Bitcoin, I think that will be a representation of that to people that they can appreciate. And we'll see even more growth beyond just Bitcoiners who kind of already are established that way. But
yeah, it's like once we really truly start to understand it, and I've studied a lot, but I still don't think I understand it completely. Just by getting that basic understanding of what Bitcoin is and what it does for us in the world, I think more and more people, once they grasp that concept, Bitcoin will start catching on even more. So I think a lot of people do want that freedom and that self-sovereignty, and whether they really can say it in those words or not, but that's what most people do want out of their life with their families and stuff. So I think once people once that catches on more mainstream, that's going to be something that definitely leads us into hyper Bitcoinization.
Right. And up until now, you could almost say that freedom has been this sort of obscure thing because of the way that we've executed upon the American dream, because of the fact that we went from a gold standard to a fiat standard. And in the last, 4 decades per se, it's just been incredibly difficult to sort of get this sense of freedom. And I think Bitcoin is the first taste at that freedom that we've had in a long time. So certainly,
Exactly.
Hyper Bitcoinization will contribute to that. But you have an interesting job here at Bitcoin Magazine. Instagram and Facebook, for me at least, I see it as sort of the forefront of reaching new people, because Bitcoin Twitter seems to be, this sort of community of people who get it or seem to get it. And Instagram, it is a wider audience, and it seems to be a younger audience. And then Facebook seems to be an older audience. So it's generally more new people. I guess the question I would ask you is, how do you think the Bitcoin community could do a better job of introducing the topic and technology of Bitcoin to new people who haven't discovered it yet?
Well, I've got a few theories on that. But one, since you did mention Instagram and Facebook, I think that, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, Twitter, they all kind of they're attractive to different demographic, different people, so I feel like with definitely like the Instagram, it's very visual, and with me being in my background in fine art, I'm able to, I feel like, create graphics that are more attractive and might bring people in that way, with being able to describe or portray Bitcoin in a certain light that's easier to understand. Then when the image is attractive or artistic, people will engage with it more, and that then we can have links back to our magazine and really interesting articles that can help new people get involved. And I feel like, going back to just how we as Bitcoiners in general can do a better job with people that are new in the space is, I've noticed a lot of people, like they get into, they call it, they get into crypto, and they almost immediately dive into like the meme coins or whatever there is, But I feel like instead of maybe being, maybe closed off to people that are automatically into that, maybe we can just share our story, how we initially got into Bitcoin. Because I know, like, for me, when I first got into, when my friends told me about it, they were into a bunch of different coins, and they weren't just, only Bitcoin. They weren't shutting everything else. But I feel like a lot of people getting into the space, they see the prices, right? So I feel like if we were able to kind of explain a little better somehow, like just sharing our experience and how, like, you can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to come out and spend, a whole Bitcoin right now. You can buy little increments of that. I think once people get that and they understand the concept of buying a few Satoshis, like, it makes it a little easier for them to get into the space. And I think if we explain that to them when they're newer, I think that's a lot of things that I didn't know when I first started. I thought, oh wow, a whole Bitcoin, that's a lot of money. So I feel like if we were able to show that a little bit sooner off for people, it'd be definitely a good step in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a lot of Bitcoiners. It's difficult for us to remember, like, the basics of Bitcoin are not very well known for many people. Most people do not understand that you can buy fractions of a Bitcoin, or even really what the difference between Bitcoin and these other coins are. So it really comes down to us to go back to these first basics and continually educate people, create good graphics that can be, disseminated throughout the internet on different mediums, and really are attractive to people. Like you said, I think people who are, creating graphics and, things for Bitcoin information, they're doing such an important job, because not many people necessarily want to read, long form articles on technical aspects of Bitcoin, or they can't even appreciate it because they haven't been introduced to those basics yet.
Yeah,
So,
especially when they're brand new.
right. And there's a way bigger audience of brand new people than there is people who are incredibly competent with Bitcoin. So hyper Bitcoinization it certainly is being, powered forward by people who, like yourself, create graphics and stuff for these newer audiences. So your work is certainly appreciated here at Bitcoin Magazine, sir.
Thank you. I agree. I know it's, especially, like, I was thinking, like, in Twitter and some of these spaces that we listen to on a daily basis, a lot of these people are so smart and so educated, and they've been in the space for a while. So I could think it could be intimidating for people just getting in to maybe even want to chime in and join into these conversations. Because I mean, I've shared some of these with people, and there's like, oh wow, there's a lot of big words, I don't really know what they're talking about. So I think, yeah, going back to maybe something just more visually attractive that kind of sparks someone's interest. Okay, what is this Bitcoin stuff? They're talking about it here, and it's a more simple way to understand it, maybe, in some of these articles. So yeah, definitely attracting people that we wouldn't normally attract through all the technical stuff, and getting them to really be able to understand it on an introductory level. I think that's definitely a good way to go.
Right. We're really hitting the point in Bitcoin right now where there's plenty of spaces and interesting areas where you can discuss the deeper levels of Bitcoin and the technical side of things. We mustn't forget the educational news side of things, which I think you are going to do fantastically for us here at Bitcoin Magazine. But moving on, I guess I would ask you what you're most looking forward to in the Bitcoin space. We have so much going on, so much news coming out, many events planned. So what are you most looking forward to?
I guess a time when just like what we were talking about, when more and more people start to really comprehend the basics of it, when it becomes more mass adopted in the world, more people. I mean, it is becoming more of a household term, but I think a lot of people still don't know about it. So once we reach the critical mass of people understanding the basics of Bitcoin, I think I'm really looking forward to that. And also, as the technology develops, I see that things will become a little bit easier to use, a lot of people coming into the space, and relatively things are getting a lot easier than when I first got in, for sure. But I'm looking forward to those days when it's just super super easy, and anybody can really get in and enjoy taking part in this journey to monetary freedom.
Yeah, we're in the Bitcoin flip phone era. I can't imagine what it'll look like when we're at the iPhone 13 era of
Yeah,
Bitcoin. You know, it's
exactly.
the user interface and the user experience will be something that we can't even comprehend at this point, or imagine at least. So it will certainly be exciting to see all those developments. But beyond that, I am curious what you think the price might be of Bitcoin. We're getting close now to the end of the year. I
Yeah,
remember
we are.
when I first started asking this question, I was asking people back in like August or around August. So they had like a good few months to say, you know, they'd be like 250,000, 300. So I'm curious now as we actually approach the end of the year, what your price prediction is. And then of course, I have to ask what you would think it'd be around 2030.
Okay. Yeah, you know, at the beginning of this year, I was looking at some charts and seeing that maybe we could be upwards of, 100 to 200,000. But now that I've seen it change and it's been moving sideways a little bit, I I kind of believe, because it does fluctuate quite a bit. But I've been looking at it, and I could say that anywhere around 75 wouldn't be a crazy idea. So I think that would be a safe prediction for the end of the year, around 75K, give or take.
I
And
definitely agree with you.
yeah, it seems like it could make a move towards there. I mean, overnight, we've seen the charts move like that all the time. So if it can go down in one direction and up one direction, it's really we're still early. So movements happen pretty quickly. But thinking more long term, though, say 2030, and I feel really conservative on this number, but you're going to say I'm bearish, but I'm absolutely not. I just feel like a little bit more once things become a little bit more mass adopted and things start to um, kind of lose a little bit of that volatility. I could see it like a bottom being around 275K. So,
Wow.
and that'd be like for a low.
By 2030, a low of 275.
Oh yeah.
Interesting. That I will say that's probably the most bearish report I've had for 2030 yet. And I certainly hope you're wrong, but at the same time,
I know. I hope I'm wrong. I really want to be wrong on that. But I could see the way. I'm just saying, like as a base, as a bottom, if that could be one of our lows. I mean, I wouldn't complain, really.
I think you probably have a more realistic look, and that's certainly, that's more likely than some of the more moonish answers I've heard, probably. And it's funny because it seems to be either that or like hyper Bitcoinization. Money is worthless if it's not Bitcoin by that point. So
now, I was gonna get to that too. Like at that point, I feel like by 2030, I don't think we'll really care about the dollar, the fiat amount of a Bitcoin, honestly. So basically, it could be 275,000 or infinity. Let's just put it that way.
exactly, yeah,
Because we won't really care
right.
what the
We've got
dollar
a big
amount is,
range. We've got a big range, and
because the value is there. The value is there.
right, and the nominal value will stop being pertaining to actual transactional value. So that's I certainly see your your thinking there. Thank you so much for coming on, Phoenix. I really appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
And if you missed the codes in the beginning, Taco Plebs, no space, will get you 10% off for conference tickets, Bitcoin 2022. Make sure to grab those. And Macro 21 will get you a discount on the deep dive subscription. So make sure to do both of those. Make sure to get a physical magazine print edition subscription. I don't have a code right now for that. Let me get that for you guys. But make sure to pick that up because it is an excellent product, and we really did a great job on that. So I encourage you all to check that out. And thanks for joining us on Meet the Plebs. I'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.